patch 1.0.10 is finally released. It's no longer in beta. It was in beta actually since December 4th. So you already see that they made significant changes to the quantity of the patches released. So if you don't want to be having new changes every few days, now you can just not use the beta. Yeah, 2 weeks since the last release is definitely nice, slower approach. So first of all, this is the last patch before the holidays break. So up until like late January, we cannot expect any new massive patches. There might be hot fixes if something really bad is discovered, but they don't expect that to happen. And in the patch 1.1, which will be finally coming as next, we already had some hint that there will be HRE changes and a lot of requested quality of life changes. Overall, you'll see that there's hundreds of changes to the content, UI, AIs, and everything else included, but I'm gonna walk you through like 50 or so key highlights that I chose from this patch that should be the most interesting for you. But you should be aware there are many more changes, you know, to the advances, events, international organizations, and situations on top of what I will be talking you through. So I'll start with something that I actually don't have listed here, but I just remembered about it. Now, in the macro builder of the buildings, especially the profitable buildings, you'll be having improved UI, for example, showing you what is your production efficiency for that specific good in that specific location. So it will make your life easier deciding where to build buildings. But yeah, besides that, we've got new advances for Kurdistan, Manchu, Sokoto, and Italy. And you know, before it wasn't as worth to form these nations because, I mean, this was, yeah, great new color, name, sometimes a higher rank, but no new content. Now there will be actual some content, not huge, but there will be some content for these nations. You remember for the War of Religions, where when you were outside of the HRE, you couldn't really do something with that war unless you're allied to one of the front sides of both. Now you'll be having some stuff in UI to do to join these wars. Rich countries should be more likely to have much bigger armies, and in general the calculations of the AIs for the force limit is changed, so over time the armies should be bigger than they are now to also make your game more challenging. When you force a culture on a subject, they should not try culture converting to anything else or assimilating to other cultures, so it should make your life easier. Fiefdoms also will not be changing their religions by themselves anymore, and at the same time fiefdoms will no longer pump stamps of your ruler. Parliament, which was discovered by me many weeks ago and reported and shared with you over YouTube. You saw it also on my Polish campaign, so I'm happy that it is now fixed because you could have 100 rulers every single time. Population demands is also adjusted, and population growth is nerfed. Like the sources are different. From my understanding, it should be a bit lower than it was before. There's a boost of the roads overall. Paved and later roads will give you more market access, which is very important for the profitability of your buildings. And at the same time, if you have a roads, you will ignore the cost of vegetation for the proximity, like, you know, woods, forests, etc. So this is a massive boost to your roads. Market villages will give you burgers now. It was one of the strongest buildings currently in early game, and that change is on the one hand, you know, more power to the burgers for these buildings. What it also means, more burgers equals more demand. More demand, more buildings, more tax, more money. There's massive boost to the rivers right now. They have max maritime presence, and they work with rivers to spread the proximity through the lakes, which is really strong for the countries with lakes like Novgorod or nations in South Africa. Proximity are also rebalanced, so overall you should have a bit less when you stack everything, even with the roads changes. For example, the policy that was giving you 10% proximity for land, so you know, where you were like every time you ruler died you could change the capital, is nerfed to 2.5%, for example. Prosperity is also nerfed. It was so easy to get it to 100. Right now you usually end up with like 50, 60, 70% of equilibrium, and if you're doing really well, it might get higher. Upstream proximity cost is massively increased. It was 10, right now it's up to 40, so as massive as downstream proximity cost. And keep in mind, gravel roads give you 20. So this is so much stronger. If you're annoyed that there was a bug with your automated trade, that it's not using your full trade capacity, I've encountered this, it is now fixed. Generally, the marriages meta is also severely nerfed. Before you could do so many marriages. Right now you can still do marriages, but it's only for your ruling dynasty and only closely related to the ruler. Cultures with 0 popes no longer can take your cultural upkeep, amazing. AIs will no longer ask you for millions of money. Remember, before, let's say you're a big nation and you have plenty of subjects, they could ask money based on your tax base, not theirs. So like one province minor could ask you for 4,000, which is great also for the players that you're playing a small nation, but it's usually more annoying. So they changed, so right now it's just 4 times of the requester tax base, so they ask for like 20 and not 4,000. This is one of the biggest exploits that was fixed. I never used it and never showed you that because I hated it. So when you had subjects, you could seize land from them. That land would be integrated immediately, so it could be your core if it's the right culture, and the amount of liberty desired taking it was flat. Now they finally changed it, so you take unintegrated lands, just like in EU4, and also the amount of liberty desired depends on population, buildings, development of that location. You can now more easily increase loyalty of subjects by improving opinion. And there's no longer a penalty for taking lands from lower rank countries, so when you're an empire and you're taking lands from a kingdom, it was 10% more expensive. From a county, it was 30% more expensive, so it was very annoying for the players, especially in late game, they couldn't take much. So now it's no longer there, but I think it's still there the other way around. So if you're a small country taking lands from higher ranked countries, you're gonna have it cheaper. Now, if you improve relations with your rival to 100, they'll actually cancel the rivalship by themselves automatically. There's, I don't know, 14th balance to the levies already since the release. I kinda hate it because I think the balance at 1.0 was the best, where levies were stronger in the first 2 ages than the standing armies, and then over time the standing armies were becoming stronger and stronger. In the latest patches was like you were just destroying, like completely wiping out the map the levies if you had the standing army. They had another change, we'll see how it works. Drilling actually now costs money, which wasn't the case before. Armies now take damage to morale from attrition, which wasn't also the case before. So for example, if you try going to North Finland, it's gonna be painful, you'll be constantly at 0 of morale when moving. Garrison recovery ticks are daily, not monthly, but slower, which is great. Before, you know, it was helping out rush some of the forts and day 1 when they're not paid. Now it's making it a bit harder. Also, it's easier to re-recruit levies once they recover. There are fixes to the naval combats. I'm not much interested in that, but I'm sure some of you are. Also, a lot of tweaks to how levies recovery. So for example, the peasant satisfaction increases the recovery from 20 to 50%, so much more. Revanches is much more impactful, 4 times more impactful. Being in a defensive war is 3 times more impactful, and being in peace is 20% more impactful. Then we've got some changes to the setup. So French and English setup, for example. France does not guarantee Scotland day 1, but at the same time, England has a truce with both Scotland and Balliol, and then also England starts with more privileges at the start just to be a bit stronger in that war. And I've seen on this beta patch that England does win a 100 years war quite often, and also London got a dock. There's also a change on the Iberian relationship, because everyone hated like Castile just keeps killing Aragon and Portugal. So there are a few changes. Portugal and Castile start with a truce. There's a good relations modifier between Castile and Portugal, so they're more likely to ally, and Portugal, Aragon and Castile will not rival each other on day 1. Then we've got plenty of key changes to the AI's behavior on how aggressive they are, so more no CB wars, more likely to declare wars, less likely when they have a lot of anti-integrated lands. There's also some changes on like issues bugs when the AIs were not declaring wars, because for example they had an access from a nation, they were not cancelling it and did not declaring war because of that. They also improved border gore, at least according to this, so we'll see how it happens and how much lands they take in the wars. I'll show you later in the time-lapse if it actually is visible in the impact. One interesting change is that AIs will actually improve relations with bigger nations that don't plan to conquer to reduce antagonism. and they will no longer improve relations with bordering nations that they want to conquer, which was the fact before, and often it was stopping them from declaring wars because of too good relations. Finally, you'll see that Iron Mans will be auto-saved only on the 1st April yearly instead of monthly to make your game speed faster, and you can no longer destroy buildings and occupy lands. But yeah, let's now jump straight to the time lapse, very quick, just to show the impact. Definitely, in my opinion, way less border gore, but still, you will see border gore. I think still the issue is that the same countries expand every time. I still think lucky nations should be a thing, and I still think that the expansion of the ice in the first 250 years is way too fast, and is way too slow in the second 250 years. And Germany is definitely dying way too fast. The HRE needs further boosts. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy the time lapse and subscribe if you do appreciate the work that I've done to create this video. Enjoy.